Hey everyone, it's Veroosh. Welcome to my channel. I'm excited to be back today to do this video on Mercury and the Sun because they are joining together in a Cazimi aspect. And I want to tell you guys about it because it's kind of a cool one to work with. So I want to go through the transit, what you can expect, and we'll start with tarot like yesterday. It is definitely Mercury retrograde because technology is going haywire. Yesterday when I did the video for the Saturn transit, Saturn retrograde, the video went to private after I finished filming. So many of you guys never got to see it and we were troubleshooting it last night. And so it's up now, but I don't think it's getting the traction that a video normally would. So if you're missing seeing that video, I really recommend it. We talked about in the video about the upcoming 2 weeks and what's important about that. And I think it's helpful. It was a collective message and yeah, a really good time. Also, if you guys are interested, you can get a reading in the description. Members, because of last night's confusion, it threw me off, so I didn't do the videos today, but I'll do them tomorrow. And because we have a very special event, astrological event tomorrow, I thought it was way better to use this energy to talk about what's coming up because I think you can benefit from this energy, or I think that it'll help you, so it's a good time to do that. If you weren't here with us yesterday, you'll know that I sort of switched formats in the fact that I'm not talking about astrology up front. I'm just going to pull some cards and read tarot, and then we're going to talk about astrology in a few minutes. So yeah, thank you for being here, and I'm excited to tell you about some timeline stuff. Also, one more thing, since I'm behind because of getting hurt and other things, it's just been a year of me. I get this resistance sometimes where I'm trying to catch up with something and then other things happen and you just have to kind of haul butt for a while. So I'm in that phase. I think it's at an end. However, there are setbacks, nothing bad, just I need to catch up. And so meanwhile, I'll be using just like the regular old format in the meantime until we get caught up, because it's better just to put out the information as opposed to just not posting content at all. So I'm sure you guys don't mind, and just bear with me as I catch up my work and get situated with all that I'm doing. So Mercury retrograde with the Sun. Now, I'll just say Mercury is retrograde right now, and it is joining the Sun tomorrow. And depending on where you are in the world, I'll update the times for your time zone in the description in a little bit. But it's a very interesting retrograde, and I did talk about this retrograde at the beginning of the year in my Mercury retrograde video, so you want to go back to that, and I did a sign by sign interpretation, which I hope helps you a little bit. But because I was hurt, I kind of had a setback and I wasn't able to do as much content for this, and I think it's actually a very interesting Mercury retrograde series, which means that all 3 Mercury retrogrades are tied to one another this year. They all are happening in the same signs, and they're kind of switching between air and earth signs. So they'll start in an air sign and then transit back into earth. And this one's no different. However, this Mercury is different. Mercury retrograde is different because it started in the sign of Gemini. And you guys know Gemini is ruled by Mercury. So the sign that rules Mercury, one of the 2 signs, is actually the sign in which it began its transit. And this is where tomorrow's transit is happening. So there's a lot to do with information. There's a lot to do with communication. And I'll get to astrology about that. But before we get into the tarot, I just kind of want to give you an idea of where I'm going with this. And this energy should, in some way, I'll just say up front and then we'll get into it a little bit more. This energy will unveil to you certain truths. And certain truths should be coming up for you. If you want to take a more active approach, you can literally ask people. One thing that I've already kind of said on a different media app is that it's a good idea not to ask too much, so as not to confuse the energy. So if you're seeking truth, if you're trying to find truth or information, you may want to keep it concise, or don't ask so many different don't try to seek so many truth in so many different situations, because that can lead to a very overwhelming energy for you. But if you have a pertinent question, if somebody's keeping a secret from you, if something's hidden at work or in a personal relationship of yours, this is definitely a time where the energy is very strong for some kind of reveal. So, you go about your day and do that tomorrow. And it's nice that it's the weekend, because people then can in some way, go and explore their lives. Less better if you're wanting a work type answer, but you may kind of find the answer in your own way anyway. So let's see, just curious if there's going to be some kind of clarity with regard to that. So we have the devil. So there's right away it's saying, we got it bang on the head, because the devil represents deception. So there's definitely, for many of us, you don't live life without deception, but I think that's the point of this energy at this. Pay attention to this. This is a big deal. Okay, so it really feels as though many of you may have been gaslit, or your lack of clarity with regard to a situation was really serving somebody else well, right? So somebody either had bad intentions or unintentionally was keeping you in the dark. Maybe there was self-serving behavior around you. And I really feel as though that was a psychological effect on you. So, when gaslighting, so somebody was gaslighting you, somebody was manipulating you to make you cooperate. And I think that you've sort of peered below the veil, or through the veil in some way. So, and through peering beyond the veil, you were able to see a deeper truth of the intentions of someone, or their direction, or what they're doing. And the Chariot represents you coming to terms with that on some level, you coming out of that and consolidating that, and no longer playing the part. Now let's talk about this a little bit, because this is really good energy. Look, this is ruled by Capricorn, and this is ruled by Cancer in the chart. Let me show you in the chart so you can see. And I have a modified chart for us today, because I want to show you just specifically this transit. But specifically for our conversation, we had the nodes in Capricorn and Cancer a couple years ago. So when the pandemonium started, that's when the South Node was in Capricorn, North Node was in Cancer. So this situation could be referring back as far back as a couple years. And we just had eclipses also, which I think this energy really deeply connects with. So the eclipses stirred things up, finalized things up, pushed things along. And now the smoke is, the dust is settling, and the truth is more clear. But what I'm getting from these cards very strongly for you is that this Chariot, this personal overcoming of being complacent or complacent to an energy that was deceptive. This is coming through as very self-serving, very selfish devil. So you've come out of it, and I don't know at what stage you are at, whether you're recognizing the dishonesty around you. And I'm not saying everybody's dishonest. This is a specific truth in your life that's being unraveled with this, some inconsistency, some deception. And it doesn't have to be with a specific relationship. For some of you, this could be leftover conditioning from your past. So maybe someone in your childhood or early adulthood told you to think a certain way, and finally you're like, no, I don't have to think this way. So this unveiling of the truth can be multidimensional, and it can be applying to several different types of situations. But there's definitely this self-serving energy and you finally coming through. And then there's a period of waiting and seeking that's coming up. So I think that that's really in line with the astrology as well. And then we have the star, which is Aquarius. There's something good coming to you to reconcile with. That help is on the way. Aquarius is the angel card, which represents some benefic energy that's coming towards you to help you. Why don't we do a reverse triangle to make it look like a cup? A cup is a symbolic energy for water and for, healthful emotions and all that. So why don't we do that today just to mix it up? So we have the 10 of Wands. I felt like 10 cards, or maybe it's going to be 10 cards just laid out a different way. King of Cups. Yeah, definitely. There's a lot of healing. There's a lot of coming to terms, a lot of coming out of energy and Hierophant. You know what just struck me about this, or what a strong download about this was? That this could potentially be someone you're interacting with, such as a love in your life, or someone who had problems, who were resistant to a relationship, who were resistant to a friendship. They've grown or they've healed, and I think that they'll be much more present in your life. And when I see the Hierophant here, the promise of camaraderie, the promise of community that you experienced with this person in the past may be now actually being offered, if that makes sense. So in the past, this person may have pulled out of a relationship or a situation with you. There may have been, I feel like this person had the devil energy. Now, this isn't for everyone. This could be for a few of you out there, but there's a real energy of someone coming back around. Now, I've heard some of you guys talk about how Mercury retrograde is good for return of relationships. In some situations, yes, especially if the issue in the relationships is communication, which applies to many people. However, the return of relationships is much more correlated with Venus retrograde as opposed to Mercury retrograde. So unless your situation is specifically about communication, like the right words weren't said, or the things that were meant to be said never were, don't expect Mercury retrograde to be your relationship tune-up or, reconciliation. But in this case, that's a caveat. In this case, it does seem as though someone's coming into themselves and reconciling and being much more positive. There's a real energy of camaraderie, common ground, and positive energy towards other people. The Hierophant rules Taurus. This is where the North Node is. So this really allows for the energy to move forward at this time. This is the progressive energy, the King of Cups, the Ace of Pentacles, the Hierophant. And so when I say progressive, which means that this is the energy that will take your life forward, and it does not have to be a male, and it doesn't have to be a person even, but there's a sense of community, and there's a sense of positive relationships that take you forward. And the Ace of Pentacles, if you're wondering, has to do with financial directions, which also signifies the North Node in a strong way. So what it seems like to me, that you're kind of walking out of a situation and you have either reconciled or healed yourself. But then there's also people who may be tied into this, who may be coming back, but not in the way that I've been hearing people say, like relationships return. That's Venus retrograde when we're working on relationships. Of course, communication is an aspect of that. Or if the person has very strong Virgo and Gemini placements, that might be the case. Or unless your Mercury retrograde is happening in the 7th or 5th house, those are the conditions under which that may happen. But specifically itself, Mercury retrograde is about fixing communication. So something's coming in. It feels very solid here. What I want to say about the nodes before we get carried away, because I don't know if I explained it well, is that the North Node was in Cancer, South Node was in Capricorn, and this energy to the energy now is a sextile. And so sextiles are very positive. They're very ace kind of energies, the new beginning of things. a fresh push in a new direction, very similar to the Fool. So you're moving ahead at this time, and so this positive correlation between the North Node and Cancer. Maybe you had this realization 2 years ago, or 2.5 years ago, and maybe it's an answer to something that was holding you back in the past. But it feels like finally things are moving ahead and things are being clarified and brought to the surface. Now we are in a sunset, so I have to kind of give her so we get all the information out for you guys. So we have, it feels like very close relationships. 10 of Pentacles is Mercury in Virgo. And then we have 2 of Cups, which is Cancer and Venus in Cancer. And then we have the 8 of Pentacles, which is Sun in Virgo. So we have all these summertime sort of energy cards. It really feels close. It really feels like camaraderie. It feels like a solid friendship. It feels like people you can trust. So this exposure of truth isn't necessarily like scary or stark or, you know, something sinister. It could be finally somebody's willing to treat you in a way that you... I'm getting the picture of a relationship in which you have the impression that their relationship is really solid, and then for whatever reason the person ghosts you, rebuffs you, or any version of that kind, and then it leaves your head scratching because you thought the relationship was great. So this could be the situation in which someone you have been confused about because they left you high and dry is coming back, or there's some kind of emergence. Now, I'm not one for recommending you go back to people who treat you poorly. When people treat you poorly, it's usually an indication that at some point they'll treat you badly another time. But I'm just relaying the information as it's coming, so you do that with what you will. But whatever is happening, it's positive and it feels very friendly. It feels very supportive and very happy. I'm happy to hear that, healthy and happy to hear that. There's the Tower. With the Tower in relationships, it's important to sort of wait. So you have 9 of Wands. A shock in vision, but I'm not sure what that applies to, if that's the truth that's coming in. And then we have Page of Wands. That's the Messenger. So it could possibly be a Sag, Leo, or an Aries, because this is a fire card, but it could be someone else. This could be somebody's bringing information that's giving you pause to think about things. There's more to this situation. You can see it's kind of complicated and it's layered. On the bottom is the King of Wands, a Sag, Leo, or an Aries. There's someone involved. This was very idyllic. As you could see, I was a little... Actually, I wasn't, a little confused, a little bit like, well, this is really good. So I guess somebody's sharing news of love and happiness. But here, something's giving you pause. And so it's very important for you to mind this energy. In fact, this is a good segue for us to talk about the astrology. And so basically how I want to impart this for you so you use it for your benefit is I'm going to tell you the astrology. I gave you the messages here now, and then we'll tie it all in a minute together. But what I really want you to do is pay attention tomorrow, and that's why I came today. So first of all, let me give you some of the time frame. And again, these are Pacific times because I live on the West Coast, but if you want like other times, I do have them. So once I post the video, I'm going to put the different times into the description. So go check it out. Okay, so first of all, the beginning of this energy starts at 7:45 in the morning Pacific time tomorrow. And the exact conjunction between the Sun and Mercury will be at 12:20 p.m. Pacific time. So that's the exact conjunction. In my observation, the energy in the morning will be stronger than the energy after. So it's likely that the truth that you're waiting for could be coming in now in some way. Maybe it came through in this message, but maybe it'll come through, somebody will call you. And with this type of energy, you definitely want to solicit also, which means, like I said, go ask someone. Like, let's say you think someone knows something, but you've been hesitant to ask, but you feel like you do want to ask. I'm not telling you what to do. Maybe this is the time to call them. Maybe this is the time to ask someone what they want to tell you. So if you feel like there's something that's hidden, you really feel like there's a secret around you, this might be a time. Or what I usually do is just sit there and listen. So rather than, ask or something like that. And I've done both. They're both fine, but sometimes just sitting and listening and trusting that the universe will bring the right message forward at the right time is I find that very peaceful. So you decide what you want to do. But the exact conjunction is 12:20 p.m. Pacific. And then we have the last, Mercury will pass the sun into Gemini, and the sun will move towards... Mercury will pass the sun, it's retrograde, into Taurus, and the sun will move into Gemini. And the last kind of moments before the exact Cazimi is 4:33 p.m. Pacific. Now, I do want to say a caveat. Cazimi can be interpreted in different ways. The numbers I gave you are for classical astrology, so this is the most strict energy. Very, very narrow terms. There are deeper or more broad ways of seeing it, under which we're already under the Cazimi. So we're under it from today until the 23rd. I also want to say another tangent caveat for those of you who are watching late. You haven't missed anything. Just look back from the 20th or so through the 23rd. Did a truth come out? Did something become public or something like that? Did someone tell you something? Someone in my family told me some crazy stuff, like gossip, and we're not a gossipy family, but some gossip came through. I was like, oh wow, it really changed some things for me. So yeah, definitely, nothing harmful, but just very eye-opening. When I say these kinds of things, I'm not trying to worry anyone. The tower shouldn't worry anybody. This is all using astrology to adjust ourselves towards a better outcome. So watch out tomorrow at those times and dates, and I'll update the description. Now there's more to this than that, so let's switch to the second part of the astrology to get you guys ready. So the Cazimi happens now, and Mercury forms a Cazimi with the sun several times a year. So this is one of them. It's not that rare, but it's definitely an intense sort of transit. So this is special because the conjunction, which is another word for this Cazimi. Cazimi means in the heart of the sun, so it means that it's in the exact same position. Some classical astrology considers objects that are further away from the sun as being combust. In other words, they burn up and they lose their energy. But when they come into the very center of the sun, they gain a lot of momentum and power. It's like their solar birthday. You can say it that way. I'm not so much one to consider combust transits. I recognize them and all that, but I don't use them too much. But I think this energy is good. And I don't talk about this transit a lot, but this one's interesting. So let me tell you why. So what's happening here is that this conjunction is happening at 0 degrees of Gemini, the sign that Mercury rules. We've just had very intense eclipses, and while Mercury was retrograde, and what you're not seeing here is that Saturn squaring the nodes, and that's bringing a lot of things up. I should have probably had Saturn in the chart here because it's very relevant. What that means is a lot of energy has been stirred up. We've been seeing a lot of people talk about difficult things on media and in public spaces. There's been a lot of venting of private opinions of others online, and in media. And I'm not speaking about anyone specifically, but I am talking about mostly what we talked about yesterday with regard to women. There's a lot of grievances being aired towards women, all those types of stereotypes that women are liars, that they're manipulators, and all those kinds of misogynistic terms. Those are very prevalent, and the way that they're showing up is that they're being cast onto women. And so rather than someone saying, look, she's a liar, they're pointing anecdotally to something and just saying, see, there's a Karen right there, that term Karen. That's mildly offensive, and it is a racist term, and it is an ageist term, and it is a sexist term. Although in some cases it's applied in a kind of anti-oppression format. I don't want to get into it, but it's along the lines of, a middle-aged white man calling white women Karen, right, online, which seems to be the pattern. Anyway, so there's this emergence of hidden animosities, and frankly, it's not just men that are doing that. Women with internalized misogyny are projecting their hatred as well. So there's an emergence of that in the world as well, and you may be experiencing this. I'm just using world as an example, but actually you should be looking out for this yourself personally. Who's calling you out, who is showing you kind of judging you or giving you a difficult time with this energy. What kind of, and I am picking up on the fact that these are things that you're supposed to reject as opposed to things that you're supposed to accept, which means that, like in the situation of Karen, there is a lot of complicated systemic oppression of women that's tied into that. And I'm not saying women are perfect all the time, but for our purpose of the conversation, this is an unbiased attack on women. And so essentially, at this time, there's a lot of things being unearthed, a lot of things people are saying that they would not normally dare say, but because there's all these eclipses, because Saturn's squaring the nodes, people are a little bit unhinged, and they're willing to be more their authentic self, and the shadow self is coming out, and especially with the eclipse at the South Node, I just realized, in Scorpio. So you may be getting a lot of information, and so Mercury conjoined the Sun at 0 degrees of Gemini. It's like a breath of fresh air, because suddenly, somebody's talking and saying things that are meant to be personal thoughts and not necessarily things that everybody needs to hear. So Mercury with the Sun is kind of, this conjunction is powerful, and it's actually connected to more. So let's go through the timeline. So we talked about the hourly timeline, which is relevant for the 21st, and then right after, Mercury will actually enter into Taurus, right? So if you watch the initial video at the beginning of the year, I was explaining to you guys how there's a pattern here, how ideas, which is air signs, Gemini, are where the Mercury retrograde begins, transforms into the Taurus earth energy, the practical consequence of those thoughts and ideas and opinions. So what we're going to see as Mercury enters into Taurus today, or tomorrow, you're going to see this energy of the application of these new perspectives. We got the Two of Wands. It's a very Two of Wands, like people are thinking, people are seeing things, and so I think that as Mercury enters Taurus tomorrow, you're going to get a more of a physical aspect to that. So it's a bit of a chiasmus, which means that they're switching energies. Sun is moving into Gemini while Mercury is entering into Taurus. They're going in opposite directions, and that's good, because I think, after every single season, it's good when the seasons change, because it's a new energy, it's a new vibe. So on June 2nd, Mercury will turn direct. That's when Saturn starts turning retrograde, and we talked about that yesterday. I'll link the video at the end of this video. Saturn will turn retrograde, and that is linked to all of this as well. It'll start switching the structure. So whatever inconsistencies you found, whatever, inconsistencies you found, whatever you're identifying, they're being worked out. People coming to terms with things, they're finding new solutions and new answers to their life's questions. And also the problems are being identified and worked on when Saturn turns retrograde. So that's June 2nd and the 4th. We have these two changes. And so then this pattern continues. I want you to see this as a pattern of several different transits. So on June 13th, Mercury will re-enter Gemini. The Sun will be at the end of Gemini and Mercury will enter Gemini. This will be a sizable push forward. So don't expect a lot of outward change in your world and life between now, the 21st after tomorrow, and the 13th. But when Mercury enters into Gemini, that's when maybe you hear something, or maybe you say something. You may not continue that conversation until the 13th. So wait for that day. A lot of things need to shift and change in between then and now. And so then we have one more event that will happen here. I'll move this forward so you can see. This is what we've been talking about. There's going to be a conjunction, another Cazimi, that's going to happen at exactly, oh look, it's right there, 24 degrees of Cancer at 14 minutes. Perfect. So that's on the 16th, and I have that as 12:22 p.m. on the 16th. So these two Cazimis are linked, one in Gemini and one in Cancer. And so it's kind of like the thoughts and ideas are being shared, and then it's going to, over the next couple months, it's going to evolve to like a mutual emotional resolution to things. And so whatever truth you become aware of tomorrow may come to pass in July. Very, very nice sequence. I hope you guys like this. As you can see, it got dark, but I don't think there's much to say. You might be getting a messenger. It sounds like you have some level of protection from spirit guides. It really feels as though there's good people for you to draw on with loving energy and a trustworthy connection. So you hold on to that. And it really feels as though something's coming your way that's going to make you pause and pay attention. Look at this. That's the Nine of Wands. This is my deck, so it's a little bit funky, but you know the card. He's looking there at the shock that he's perceived, and he is saying, holy crap, what am I going to do with this? So messenger time, Page of Wands, very innocent energy. You're not threatened at all, but I think the information coming in for you over the next, couple weeks is going to be intense. I did go a little bit fast because of the sunset. So what I'm going to do is put all the dates that you need to know in the description now. Give me about half an hour to do that. And I hope you guys had fun today. Go and watch the Saturn video from yesterday. I hope you like that. And members will do our session tomorrow morning for Earth signs. Yeah, baby, we're going to do the session for a part of the thing with the members is I like doing readings like this. Like I have something to say. It's not rushed. So let me percolate, let me ferment a little bit with this. And when I'm ready to speak on it, then I hope it's